This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Tuesday evening, November the 28th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Elon Musk's trip to Israel. What is going on here? Benjamin Netanyahu, he personally invited Elon Musk to Israel, and Elon Musk, he went to Israel. And here's my take on this trip. I think this is a business trip. I think Elon can help Netanyahu out, and I think Netanyahu can help Elon out. And how can Netanyahu help Elon out? Well, my opinion is that Elon would like to see a lot of this anti-Semitic narrative directed at him and Twitter. He would like to see a lot of this stuff go away. And I think that Netanyahu can help him out with that. How can Elon help out Netanyahu? I think this is the much more interesting part to this deal, to this business transaction. I think that Elon can help Netanyahu and Israel with the information war, because things are not going well for Israel on the information war front. And it is Twitter without a doubt that dominates the Israel-Gaza war. Twitter is the news social media platform that is dominating this conflict. For the Ukraine conflict, the dominant platforms were Telegram and YouTube. For this war, it is Twitter. There are a lot of reasons why, but I won't get into that in this video. But what better way to get help on the information war front, if you're Netanyahu in Israel, than to call the owner of Twitter over to discuss things. And they did a Twitter Spaces and X Spaces program together. And it looks like Musk sees things very, very much in the same way that Netanyahu sees things with regards to the war in Israel and in Gaza. Musk even said that he would like to help out once they get to the stage of rebuilding Gaza and reconstruction of the area after the war. Netanyahu said it would be great if you would help out, and Musk said, I would like to do so. So they even did a Twitter Spaces together. So the interesting part will be what happens next. What happens when Elon returns to the United States and goes back to Twitter headquarters? Are we going to see Twitter start to boost content that is favorable to Israel? Are we going to see Twitter start to push down content that is favorable to the Palestinians or that is anti-Israel? Are we going to see more censorship? It's going to be interesting to watch what's going to be happening on the Twitter platform. But my feeling, my hunch is that Elon gets something out of Netanyahu, and Netanyahu gets some help on the information war front. I imagine that's the exchange that probably took place. So I could be wrong. This is just my opinion. Maybe nothing's going to happen on Twitter with regards to how the war in Israel and Gaza is being covered. But we'll see. We'll see over the next couple of weeks if there's an uptick in censorship and shadow banning and boosting various profiles or tweets and pushing down other tweets and profiles. We'll see. So that is the trip from Elon Musk to Israel. A very interesting, very controversial trip by Elon Musk. A lot of people talking about it. And let's now shift gears and talk about Project Ukraine and Stoltenberg's statement that he made to the media right before a NATO foreign ministers conference. Stoltenberg told the media that that they should never underestimate Russia. That is what Stoltenberg told the media. Never underestimate the Putin. An interesting comment from the head honcho, the chief of NATO. And it's an interesting comment, an interesting statement from Stoltenberg, because all this time it was Stoltenberg who was telling us that Russia at one point in time had the second best military in the world. Now it has the second best military in Ukraine. That's what Stoltenberg was telling us. He was the one telling us that Russia's military is no match, not only for NATO, but it's absolutely no match for the Ukraine military. Stoltenberg said many times that the Ukraine military can win and is winning, and NATO will support Ukraine until it is victorious over Russia. And it was Stoltenberg who was pushing out the narrative that with the great big super duper counteroffensive, the Ukraine military would roll over the Russian military in a matter of days. They would reach the Sea of Azov. The Russian military would crumble at the sight of the advancing Ukraine military, and that would be it. Russia's military would be split in two, and the Russian military would collapse. Victory for Zelensky and Ukraine. All of these narratives were being pushed out by Stoltenberg, and now all of a sudden, it's Stoltenberg saying, "Look, I was telling you guys all along not to underestimate Russia. So don't underestimate Russia. I was telling you guys, don't underestimate them. Now you see, Russia's kind of winning, though Stoltenberg didn't say that. Stoltenberg wouldn't even admit that there's a stalemate, but we understood what he was saying. Russia's kind of doing good and Ukraine's kind of not doing so good, but I told you guys, don't underestimate the Russians." So that was an interesting statement from Stoltenberg. And then Stoltenberg said during an interview with a Hungarian TV radio channel, Stoltenberg said that the plan right now is to hold the Ukraine card in NATO's back pocket. The Ukraine card goes right in NATO's back pocket. And the last thing that Russia wants to see is for NATO to pull out that Ukraine card. And what Stoltenberg meant with this statement and what he told the media and TV channel in Hungary, he meant that Ukraine has never been closer to NATO than it is right now. But at the moment, the NATO alliance is not ready to fast track Ukraine into the alliance. So what they're going to do is they're just going to hold that NATO card. They're going to put it in their back pocket, and it acts as a type of deterrence towards Russia. You know, don't push us, Russia, because we just might take that Ukraine card and put it on the table, and that would mean that Ukraine gets into NATO, and well, you know, that's, according to Stoltenberg, that would be lights out for the Russian military. You don't want to push us too hard, Russia. That is what Stoltenberg meant with his comment about Ukraine being in the back pocket. But at the moment, Stoltenberg said, at the moment, Ukraine is not yet ready to get into NATO, and NATO is not yet ready to let Ukraine in. But they do have a way to bridge the gap. And this is courtesy of Politico with an article with the title, Stalemate Best Describes the State of War in Ukraine by Providing Kiev with tangible security guarantees. Moscow would be made to understand it will never determine Ukraine's future. And so the way that Stoltenberg and Ursula van der Crazy and Jungle Joseph and Bidenopolis, the way they can bridge the gap from where Ukraine is right now until Ukraine enters NATO is they can provide security guarantees to Ukraine. And so Politico says in this article that what needs to happen is that everyone needs to agree that right now, at this moment, what we have in Project Ukraine is a stalemate. So everyone has to agree to that, including the little green man. So he has to understand and agree that we have a stalemate. Then we can all move to some sort of a ceasefire, a pause, negotiations, a freeze, call it whatever you want. And then once we get to a freeze or a ceasefire, of course, the Russians are agreeing to all of this in the minds of Politico and NATO. The Russians are agreeing to all of this. Once we get to a freeze, then security guarantees can be provided to Ukraine. These security guarantees will prevent Russia from breaking this freeze or this ceasefire or this pause until, and this will bridge the gap until Ukraine finally enters the NATO alliance. And in the meantime, until Ukraine enters the NATO alliance, the collective West, they can invest money in Ukraine, they can rebuild Ukraine, they can turn it into an economic powerhouse, they can rebuild the Ukraine military, and because they have these security guarantees, these bilateral security guarantees, Russia's not gonna make any moves whatsoever. And then over a couple of years, Ukraine eventually enters NATO. Various countries that are against Ukraine entering NATO, for example, Hungary or Slovakia, the collective West can work on these countries, soften them up. They agree to allow Turkey as well. They agree to allow Ukraine into NATO, and that's it. Checkmate, game over for the Putin. So that is the plan. That is the plan, according to Politico. That is the plan. It is my belief that is the plan that Stoltenberg probably has in his almost empty head. That is probably the plan and the wish of the European Union. Of course, Politico doesn't stop to ask how is this bilateral security guarantee thing any different than what Ukraine has right now with NATO, being a NATO proxy and getting money and weapons, training, surveillance, mercenaries. How is this any different than a bilateral security guarantee? And Politico doesn't ask the question how Russia would respond to any type of security guarantee agreements. Russia may just laugh it off because Russia would realize that any security agreements with Ukraine is really no different than what is happening right now at this moment. It is no different. Now, if you create a security agreement, a security guarantee in the form of a treaty, which says something along the lines of if Russia breaks this imaginary ceasefire, then we are obligated to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, or obligated to come to Ukraine's military defense. If you don't have this in place, then there is no difference than what's going on right now with regards to the conflict and signing some sort of bilateral security guarantees. But I can't think of one country. I can't think of one country, even the United States, that would be willing to enter into a security treaty, a security guarantee, not even a treaty, a security guarantee with Ukraine, which would oblige the US military to get involved in this conflict with like actual boots on the ground and perhaps even an actual declaration of war against Russia or something along those lines. I can't think of one country that would sign up to something like that. Not one. Not the US, not Poland, maybe the UK, but even the UK, I doubt it. Maybe the UK is crazy enough to Sunak or one of these guys, Boris Johnson, Cameron. Maybe they're crazy enough to put something like that together. But I would imagine that the UK population would flip out. They would say, "Hell no, there is no way that we're going to go to war with Russia on behalf of Ukraine." And of course, they talk about the ceasefire and a pause and a freeze, as if Russia would agree to anything like that. But once again, with the collective West, with these neocons, they come up with these fantastical plans and ideas, but they never actually consider the other side. They don't consider Russia. Russia's a non-entity. It has nothing to do with this incredible plan that we're going to put in place, from stalemate to freeze to security guarantees to NATO. That's the path that they would like to put in place, according to this Politico article. Anyway, that was the Politico article. And let's do one final story, and we will then get to our clown world. And this story has to do with the Elgin Marbles. These are the marbles that Lord Elgin took from the Acropolis, the Parthenon, the frieze, the top part of the Parthenon, these beautiful marbles, 80, 90, 100 years ago. Lord Elgin of the UK, he took these marbles and he transported them to the British Museum, to the UK, and they have had these marbles ever since. And Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister of Greece, he traveled to the UK, and he wanted to have a meeting with Rishi Sunak and to ask for these marbles back, to return these marbles to their homeland, back to Greece, where they could be displayed at the museum by the Acropolis. And Rishi Sunak, he was supposed to meet with Mitsotakis, and he canceled the meeting 2 hours before it was going to take place. Now, Mitsotakis, he gave an interview to British media, and he told British media that the marbles must be returned back to Greece. He said that Greece and the UK, they have a very special relationship and they're best of buddies, best of pals, but these marbles need to be returned back to their homeland. And Mitsotakis said it's like the Mona Lisa, like cutting off the head of the Mona Lisa and taking the head and taking it out of France and having another country have the actual head of the Mona Lisa. That's what he said it's like with the Elgin marbles. And Mitsotakis actually met with Keir Starmer before taking the meeting with Sunak as well. And many people speculate that Sunak was very upset at the fact that Mitsotakis met with Starmer first and then took a meeting with Sunak. But the reports are that Sunak snubbed Mitsotakis, who decided to cancel the meeting that was going to take place because Sunak was angered at the demands made by Mitsotakis that the Elgin marbles should return back to Greece. So a bit of drama between Greece and the UK, some drama between Mitsotakis and Sunak. The reports are that Mitsotakis, the Greek prime minister, was furious at the fact that he was snubbed by Rishi Sunak. And there have been some statements coming out of the UK, statements along the lines of the friendship between Greece and the UK is very dear and special to us. And we have a partnership with NATO, and we have a partnership. The statement actually says we have a partnership with Ukraine as well, and blah, blah, blah. But the statement then goes on to say, the Elgin Marbles cannot be returned back to Greece. They will never be returned back to Greece. The Elgin Marbles belong in the British Museum, and they cannot be returned back to Greece. That was pretty much the statement from, I believe, from Sunak's press office, or from the Tory Conservative press office. So that was the reply to Mitsotakis. He got snubbed for a meeting, and then the statement was that Greece is never going to get the Elgin Marbles. And my thinking on this is, number one, those Elgin Marbles need to be returned back to Greece. They were stolen by Lord Elgin. For whatever reasons he had to take those marbles. I believe at the time, Lord Elgin, he said that he's going to take the marbles in order to preserve them and to safeguard them from any type of damage. So I think that was his excuse. But anyway, it's been like 80 to 100 years now. Return those marbles back to Greece. Let's get them to the Acropolis Museum, which is a fantastic, beautiful, well-organized museum. Let's get those to the museum where they belong. But every prime minister, every Greek prime minister has this ritual where they contact the prime minister of the UK, and they tell the UK prime minister to return those marbles. Then the ritual is from the UK prime minister to say, we have a great friendship, Greece. We value your friendship, but no, we're not going to return those marbles. And that's it. And that's the whole story. That's how it goes. Every prime minister, every Greek administration does the same thing. And that's that. It's almost like it's a rite of passage. They have to do that in order to please the Greek people, to say, let's return the Elgin Marbles. You see, I asked for the UK to return those marbles. The UK said no, and that's that. So that's my take on this story. If Greece, if Mitsotakis was serious about getting those marbles back to Greece, then you don't talk to Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is not the person you go to make the decision about returning those marbles back to their homeland. So right there is where you messed up. You don't approach Rishi Sunak, because Rishi Sunak, he's not going to take the final decision. He doesn't have the authority to make that decision. You have to go to the source. You have to go to the person or the country. You have to go to the country that would make that decision, and that would tell the powers that be in the UK to return those marbles. And that decision maker is actually right up the street. If you go up the street, say a kilometer or two, that's where you'll find the American embassy, and that's where you can make your case to the American embassy, to the United States, to say, look, put some pressure on the UK to return the marbles. It's that simple, bro. It is that simple. If you're really serious about getting those marbles back to the Acropolis, to the Parthenon, to the museum here in Athens, that's what you have to do. Rishi Sunak is not going to make that decision. It's way above his pay grade. It's way above his pay grade. You have to go to the U.S. You have to go to the U.S. They're going to be the ones to call up Sunak or whatever prime minister is in office and say, look, return those marbles, because if you don't return those marbles, then Greece said that they're going to I don't know, they're going to stop supporting Project Ukraine, or they're going to decrease the money that they put into NATO, their NATO budgets, or something like that. Of course, the problem you have if you're a Greek prime minister is if you tell the United States, look, if we don't get those Elgin marbles back, then we're going to stop funding Ukraine. We're going to pull out of Project Ukraine. The problem you have is that if you're the Greek prime minister, the U.S. is going to say, really? Is that so, huh? And you know what happens then. Anyway, that's my take on this story, and this is a good lead into my clown world. And This has to do with the big storms that that happened in Crimea yesterday. Very, very big storms. And we are getting word now that these storms were caused by the Supreme Witch of Ukraine. She's the one that caused these storms. She goes by the name, I think she goes by the name Althea. Anyway, here's a tweet from Lord Bibo. Breaking, the Supreme Witch of Ukraine asks for $82,000 to continue to cause hurricanes in Crimea. Quote, this takes a colossal amount of spiritual energy. In fact, to create a natural disaster of this magnitude, I sacrifice a piece of my soul. Such things are not done for free, Althea said. So there you have it. The Supreme Witch of Ukraine caused these hurricane-like storms in Crimea. And she's basically saying, look, if you want me to cause more of these storms, natural disasters, you got to pay me. You got to pay me, and the price is $82,000. How did she come up with the number $82,000? Why didn't she say $100,000? $150,000? Why $82,000? How did she come up with that price? Interesting. Anyway, you know, the grift of Project Ukraine, it's pretty incredible. Everyone wants a piece of the Project Ukraine action. And the Supreme Witch of Ukraine, Miss Althea, she wants a piece of the grift. $82,000, by the way, because creating natural disasters, it's tough stuff if you're a witch. It's very tough stuff. It takes a piece of your soul. So anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 20% off. Use the code TheDuran20. Take care.